Good morning. Welcome back to the farmstead. This morning we're going to start a project that we'll finish up tonight. Have some things to do this afternoon. Then when we get home, we'll finish it up. But this morning early, I got up, went out to our local grocer that is close by that I really like, and they are having a sale. If you'll watch your local ads on, mostly on the apps these days, I started to say they come in the newspapers. I think that dates me a little bit. But you can look on your app and see what your local grocery stores have on sale. This week, our local grocer had roast. These are beef roast, and they were buy one, get one for a penny. Now, you do have to watch and make sure that the regular price is not, jacked up a little bit so they can mark it down a little bit. But these are all right in line with regular prices today. So I got 4 roast, buy one, get one for a penny. These are, let's see how much these weigh. These are about 3.5 pound roast each. They're all right about the same size, and they were $6.99 a pound. So for about $50, I have 4 roast. Now what I'm going to do with these is can them. Canning meat gives me a real sense of security, especially in the winter during storm season, where if I have something in the freezer and the electricity goes off and stays off, you're at risk for losing that. But if you have it on the shelf, it is stable, it's not dependent on electricity, and it stays for a long time. So what we're going to do this morning is trim these up, get them ready, and then when I get home tonight, we'll can them. So let's get started. So I'm going to take each of these. Now each of these has a piece of fat, kind of a good sized piece depending on the cut on each one, and we're going to cut that off. Now when you're canning meat, you don't want to can the fat, but I'm going to save the fat, and I am going to put packages of that in the freezer so that when I need something to have to cook fat in, like to saute green beans, to saute onions, any kind of thing like that, you can use this as you would a fat, like a bacon fat or something. This may turn out to be too sinuous, if that's a word, but we'll see. Let's get it cut off best we can, and we'll go from there. This one is really stuck. There we go. Now you're going to cut a little meat off with it probably, but that doesn't mean you're going to lose all that meat because you're going to cut it up and use it for something else. So we still got a little bit here, but I'm okay with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it, the grain runs this way. I'm going to cut across the grain, and I'm going to cut it into about 1 inch thick slices. Okay, then I'm going to take those slices and I'm going to cut them into chunks. And you want about a 1 inch chunk. And this is what's recommended in our canning books, because that way the meat will have the opportunity to be cooked all the way through in the canning process. So I'm going to continue to trim these up. Any of the little fat parts that I run into, I'm going to put in this bowl, and there's a perfect size chunk. Now once you have these canned and you have them on the shelf, it is so handy to fix anytime. We use these for like a pork roast, I'll cook maybe some potatoes and carrots in the Instant Pot in 10 or 12 minutes. And you've got, open this up, you open a can of this, a jar of this, heat it all up, make a brown gravy, and you've got a roast just like you'd cooked all day long. And pressure cooking really tenderizes your meat, really gives you the texture of something that has been cooking all day. Just like something Grandma would have put in to cook before church. You get home after church and it's just right. It's perfect. This is good for making beef tips and rice. It's good for putting into a stew. It's good for putting into chili. It's good for, say, a beef stroganoff. So many ways you can use it without the hassle of having to get it out and cook it. Now, granted, when you can it, it won't be browned and seared like it would if you had cooked it just like this in your pan. But that doesn't mean you can't do it when you get it out of the can. You can still get that good crusty brown bits in the bottom of your pan by cooking it, browning it up, a little olive oil, and it's wonderful. Now these are very lean, and so they're not going to have a lot of fat in them. All right, one down, 3 to go. Now these are beef rump roast. You can also do this with pork roast. I've done this with pork loins, pork shoulders, pork butt roast, any kind of meat that is a roast type meat, this would work for. I would venture to say this would even work for a brisket. I haven't tried it with a brisket because brisket don't usually last that long around here. But I bought these this morning, and I'm doing this now because I've planned ahead. I've made the time to do this, so this is what I'm going to do today. But if that weren't the case, and I still wanted to get them on sale, I could put these in the freezer. And then when I did have time, take them out, let them thaw, and then start this process. And that would be fine. I'm not going to season these a lot when I put them in my jars. I'm going to add a little salt, but that's it. Because I want to have meat, and I do the same with my ground beef when I can it. I may put a little salt in it. I think I put a little pepper in my ground beef too. But I want to have meat that when I get ready to use it can take on the flavors of whatever I happen to be making that day. If I'm making a stew, I may want one flavor. If I take this and I make I got a really hard spot in that. I'm not going to keep that. If I want to make a teriyaki, that's a whole different flavor. So the basic salts in these, and you don't even have to do that, will allow you to pick and choose how you want to use them in the end. Same thing with pork. Now I find that pork doesn't have near as much flavor as beef. Even when a roast is just cooked, I don't know, maybe I'm not doing it right, or I'm not seasoning roast pork enough. I've tried to be more liberal with my pork seasonings, but I'm still working on that. But beef, we're from Texas. I am a meat and potatoes girl. So is my family. But we're doing a lot more fish these days, but we do like our beef. So there we have it. Nice big bowl. Now I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap, put it in the fridge, and then when I get home from doing all my things today, we will get it into some jars and into the pressure canner. But I'm going to take these, and I'm going to chop these up into smaller strips, just like I would if I were going to maybe render down bacon to use for cooking green beans, for putting in baked beans, anything where you might use a rendered lard, you could do. Now you could render this down, you can strain it, and you can store it like that to use. A lot of the same things you do with pork fat, you can do with beef. And I've not used beef near as much as I have pork, but I do like it. And at some point, I would like to learn how to make true beef tallow. So, I'll put that on the bucket list of things to learn. Let's get these chopped up into, probably split it into a couple of Ziploc bags to put into the freezer. Some of this may end up being that it's not really good for eating, so we may have to render down the fat out of it and then strain out the bits. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Now for these, I'm doing just like I did. I'm cutting across the grain. Anytime you cut across the grain with meat, you get a much more precise cut. You don't have the tearing. And sometimes it's not possible, but when you can, it makes for a neater cut. Okay. All right. Wash my hands and get some bags set up. Be right back. If you have not discovered these little things for holding bags, you're missing out. They are fabulous. They come in a set of 6. You can set them all up at one time. Load your things. This is for quart. That's for gallons. So easy. We just thought we needed an extra set of hands. All right, so on my bag, I'm going to mark what we have. Beef fat. And I'm putting the month and the year. And you could put the day if you wanted. But I always date things so that I know what I put in first. If there's something I need to use up first, then I know which one to pick. And these are not the good zipper freezer bags because I use this pretty quick. Okay, and so it's not going to be in there for an extended period of time. If I thought it were, or if I had a pile, I certainly would do better on the bags. All right, let's use our tongs. Just drop it in. Get in there. There we go. All right. So I'm going to take these. I'll press the air out. Zip them up. Lay them flat. Laying things flat in your freezer to get them frozen will then allow you, once they are all frozen, if you want to organize in a different way. Stand them up. But you can get a whole bunch in there if you lay them flat. So there we go. Ready for the freezer. Gonna cover this, put it back in the fridge, and we'll pick up later today. See you then. I think I've got all my supplies ready to get started. Got my roast that we chopped up in 1-inch squares earlier today. I've got rings, lids. I've got my jar lifter. I've got vinegar for wiping the rims. I have salt. I'm going to put a little bit in each jar. I have my debubbler. I have my little bowl that I put my vinegar in. I have my pressure canner on the stove with water in it getting warm. And I have my jars in the dishwasher washing and getting hot. So this is going to be a hot pack method. I have my kettle over here that we will boil water with to pour over. So we'll get some jars out of the dishwasher, bring them over here, they'll be warm. We're going to put salt in them, our meat in them, we're going to fill them with hot water, and then put them into a warm canner. So all of our components except our meat are going to be warm. Okay? Alright, let's get started. Alright, so we're going to start with 4. This is regular canning salt, not table salt. Whenever you're canning, you don't want to use regular table salt that's iodized. This is just regular canning salt. And I'm putting, since I'm doing pints, I'm putting a half a teaspoon in each one. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop meat down in each one. And I'm going to fill them up until they are, I'm going to push them down, and I want 1-inch headspace, which is about where the ring is right here on the jar. Right? So we're going to get those down in there. I'm going to turn my tea kettle on to start boiling. I'm kind of going to work in small batches. Get these done, and then I'll get another. Now I've got 14 jars set out. I don't know if I'll use them all, but that is what fits in my canner. All right. So you can see there we've got it pushed down in there. We've got about 1-inch headspace, and we're going to fill it the rest of the way with water and debubble. You want to make sure that you get all the bubbles out because the bubbles, if they're left in the jar, are where bacteria can hide and things that make your food go bad. So you want to be sure and do a good job of debubbling. Okay, so I'm packing them down in there. You don't want to overfill them because if you do, you may have siphoning, which will not allow your lid to seal good, and you don't want that. All right, wash my hand. Beer in my jar, and I'm also going to pour a little bit in my canner, and that helps keep the outsides of the jars nice and clean. And that just takes a couple tablespoons. But But if you live in an area where you have hard water, you have minerals and things in your water like that, it'll keep those from adhering to your jars while it's cooking. If you've got grease or anything on the outside of your jars, it'll help clean that off. So always put a couple tablespoons of vinegar into your canner. All right, this is almost ready. 2 lids here. Now I get 2 more ready. And now we wait on water to boil.
A few moments later.
All right, we're boiling. I'm going to take the little end, I'm going to poke it down in there, try to get all of our bubbles out. You can see the bubbles coming up by themselves a lot of times. I know they're not supposed to be in there. Okay. All right, now after we've debubbled, this one has got a little bit more than that inch. It's a little too much, so I'm going to get a little cup and take some of that out. A little measuring stick on here. That'll show you when you're down to that inch level. All right. Paper towel. Wipe the rim very well. Any kind of grease or meat or even spices, when you put spices in, would keep your jar from sealing well. And that would defeat the whole purpose. So we're going to clean that really well. I wipe around a little bit if I feel like I have a need. All right, so that's trash. Put a lid. A ring, and I'm just going to make this fingertip tight, which just means just like that. You want it on there to hold. So that one didn't thread right, so we'll take it off and redo it. There we go. Just enough. Okay, off to the canner. And get some more jars. And repeat. Salt. Meat. This is so handy to have on the shelf to open anytime. You will be amazed that you didn't can meat sooner. I have kicked myself over and over that I was leery of doing it. But I can't tell you how many times I have been so thankful to have a can of ground beef, a can of roast, a jar, chicken, whatever. And it is just so handy to have. All right, hands. And water. And debubble. On the sides, in the middle. Wipe the edge. And to the canner. And there we go. I'm going to turn it up to almost high. And I got to go find my weights because I'm not sure what I did with them through all of our house renovations. Oh. Got them. So when this gets to steaming, I'll time it for 10 minutes and let it steam. You'll see a whole plume of steam. Gonna let that go for 10 minutes. We'll put this on there, come back up to where it's rocking, and then set our timer to cook. All right, so our 10 minutes are up. Our little pressure valve over here is popped up. We've still got our full-blown steam going. I've got my 10-pound weight. I'm going to use a hot pad because if I don't, I'll burn myself. I've met me. I'm going to take that and I'm going to place it right over there. Push it down. Now, when this comes up to pressure and it's ready, this will start spinning. So we're going to give it a few minutes to do that. And once that comes up to pressure, we can set our time for cooking. Well, there we are. Took about 10 minutes for it to come up to pressure, to build its pressure. Now it's spinning and it's releasing a little more than I'd like it to. So this is the time when we turn our heat down. All this time we've had it up on high. And now we're going to turn it down. And I know that I turned it down on my stove, but to the first dot past low. And then as long as I keep maintaining that, I'm good. And I'll adjust it a little bit to make sure that it keeps rocking, that it keeps spinning, that it's not releasing a lot of the pressure. So now it's stopped. So I'm going to turn it up just a smidge because I want it to be rocking. I want it to be rocking or spinning or doing just a little bit of something. And that way I know I'm at just the right temp. All right, there we go. Maybe a little hard to see on camera, but it's rocking. There we go. And every once in a while, it'll blow off a little steam, but for the most part, it'll do this the whole time. All right, so I'm going to adjust it down just a tad. There we go. Now, got our timer set for 75 minutes. And then we'll have some canned roast beef. After the 75 minutes were up, I turned the heat completely off and let it sit until all the pressure came down. And you can tell that because the little pressure valve on the other handle has gone down back into its little spot. So I'm going to twist off the top and I'm going to set it just off to the side a little bit so that the steam that's still in there will release slowly. And this again helps prevent siphoning. So I'm going to leave this for about 10 minutes. We'll come back and take the lid completely off and take them out. So after the 10 minutes, I take the lid off completely. I'm going to check to see if there's any visible broken ones or siphoning or anything I can see that I might need to look out for as I unpack them. And I don't see anything, which is great news. So I'm going to take them all and I'm going to stack them over on the counter. I'm going to set them over on the counter on a wire rack to cool. Once I take my little divider off there, I can see that there is at least one that did have some siphoning, but I don't see any of the rest. So I'm just making sure that I don't have any broken ones as I take the rest of them out and stack them over on the cabinet. You can see the one here on the bottom left that I'll need to wipe off good before I get ready to put labels and things on it. But for now, I'm going to let them sit for 24 hours and make sure everything sets up like it should. It's been about 36 hours since the roast beef came out of the canner. So it's time to take the rings off and check the seals. I think that this one has siphoned out some. There's a little bit of residue on the top. And all the others look like they've got a little bit on the top. So we're going to take these and wash them with vinegar. Wipe them all off with vinegar real good. And that should get rid of any of the residue and allow our labels to stick on the top. And it's sealed good. It just must have siphoned out some. May have been a little too full. Alright, so just with a paper towel, I'm going to clean all that off real good. And I'll wipe the outside of the jar. And go through, do the same thing with all the others. put these rings in the dishwasher. Run them through the dishwasher since it feels like there's a little something on them. All right, there you have it. 14 jars of roast beef ready for the shelf. You will see in some of these there's a little bit of the fat congealing. That's fine. It'll all heat back up and do great when you get ready to warm them up. So, hope you'll give it a try sometime. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.